GOP establishment's days are numbered. I hope this is accurate. This article is a little bit more optimistic than me. I think the deep state gonna keep deep stating. I think they're gonna continue to take our tax dollars and give it to these foreign countries because they are part of the problem. They are part of the money laundering scheme. A lot of the GOP establishment is getting kickbacks as well. That's why they are for foreign aid, sending billions upon billions of dollars overseas and continue to allow our borders to be wide open and us to be invaded from the south. uh, they are bought and paid for just like the leftists are. So I'm not as optimistic as this article, but we'll dive into this article. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my merch store. Also, check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Again, check out my Patreon. I just put out a new video yesterday, so check that out as well. All right, let's talk about this news. Now, this comes from the Discern Report, Kevin Roberts, by way of the Daily Signal. And he reports that the Republican establishment doesn't know it yet, but last weekend was a watershed moment for their party. On April 20th, House Republican leader, so-called Republican leader, I should say, facilitated a passage of a foreign aid package that sends roughly 60 billion with the B, to Ukraine, 26 billion to Israel and Gaza, 8 billion to Taiwan, and exactly $0 to the southern border. Again, we are being invaded from the south, and our government is doing absolutely nothing about it. They are fixed. They are giving money to protect other countries' borders. Again, while our border is wide open, we live in bizarro world. Everything is upside down. When do we start protecting our interests? That's exactly why a lot of Americans are for Trump, because Trump wants to put Americans first, not other countries first. But the bill has since passed the Democrat-led Senate and was signed by President Joe Biden. The vote will be remembered for the choice Republican leadership made to brazenly reject its own voters in favor of the uniparty in Washington, D.C. Majority of Americans, the overwhelming majority of Americans, do not want to send our money overseas. You don't understand. We are spending, every 100 days, we are going $1 trillion into debt every 100 days. It is unsustainable. We continue to borrow money from China, who's supposed to be our adversaries, but we continue to borrow money from them and take that money and send it overseas. What is going to happen when China call in our debts? What's going to happen when they say, you know what, we're tired of giving y'all money, we want y'all to start paying us back? What's going to happen then? Because we definitely don't have the money. You can tax everyone at 100%, and we still wouldn't be able to pay this stuff down. But in a move that could only be described as McConnell-esque, House Republican leadership teamed up with Democrats to overrule the position of their own conference, their voters, and the will of the American people. Democrats on the House Rules Committee made an unprecedented move by crossing the party line and overruling Republican opposition in committee, signaling an end to the typically Democrat versus Republican battle and the beginning of the conservative versus uniparty war. The disconnect between the swamp and small town America cannot be more profound. How can a political party be so tone deaf to the plight of the everyday Americans suffering under inflation, crime, and societal rot? It's simple, because they're in D.C. They live in their ivory towers. They live in protected. They got protection from private security and government security and all these other things, so they don't deal with a lot of the things normal Americans have to deal with. That's why it's such a disconnect. But how can a Republican-led House prioritize the borders of another country over our own border, even as American citizens are killed by illegal immigration, immigrants. Sorry. How can so-called fiscally responsible Republicans sign off on what is now $174 billion indirect Ukraine aid with a national debt of 34 trillion with the T, more than $250,000 for every American household. Now tell me how many Americans make over $250,000 to pay this debt? Most Americans don't. And how can House Speaker Mike Johnson, who had pledged repeatedly that no foreign aid legislation could be advanced without first securing the border, remember when Johnson made those promises? So quickly be steamrolled by the establishment. In there, it's because they got dirt on him. I mean, that's the only explanation. He's guilty. He done something wrong. They got the dirt on him, and of course, so he go back on everything that he said. But in their desire to send billions of dollars to a conflict that our commander in chief has still to this day offered no plan of winning, the GOP leadership not only spurned their party's own supporters, but overlooked an opportunity to appeal to independent Americans frustrated by both parties. According to a recent polling, the Heritage Foundation conducted with RMG research, an overwhelming 3 out of 4 swing state voters oppose sending any additional aid to Ukraine without also allocating funds to our own borders. So 3/4, um, a majority, 56% of swing voters in key battleground states thought that the $113 billion the United States had already committed to Ukraine was way too much. The entire Heritage enterprise fought for over a year and a half on this issue. Heritage Action for America engaged our millions of grassroots members to voice their concerns of their representatives. Scholars at the Heritage Foundation presented a national security alternative package that included limited military aid to Ukraine, but made border security the central focus. In an unprecedented move, we even issued a key vote on our legislative scorecard against Speaker Johnson' convoluted rule, which was a gimmick that lowered the threshold to a simple majority, not a supermajority, under suspension. That's how they passed it. They are so slick and provided political cover for members to vote against individual pieces without jeopardizing the package. I mean, despicable work. Powerful interests were aligned against us, however, and we lost on the day. Though we lost this battle, all signs indicate that we are winning the war for the soul of the GOP. I'm not so sure about that. Establishment has a chokehold, as we can see, because they passed this stuff, even though the majority of Americans are tired of sending our money overseas. A majority of Republicans, 112, voted against Ukraine aid on April 20th. Younger and newer members are particularly fed up with leadership's conciliatory approach and manipulative tactics that have led us to this point. The average age of the Senate Republicans who voted nay is 59, while the average age of those who voted yay is 66. Of course, the older establishment. The average nay voted has been in office since just 2016, while the average yay vote has been in Washington since 2010. The same dynamic was true with the recent 1.2 trillion with the T omnibus spending bill. This general shift can be ignored by the uniparty, but it's not going away. New and younger representatives want a choice, not an echo, and increasingly they're adopting a populist form of conservatism that champions government of the people, by the people, and for the people above all else. We have to get rid of these establishment figures and bring in some fresh blood that's not afraid to speak truth to powers and stop this government laundering to other countries. In other words, they want a GOP that puts America first, something a government in any healthy republic would do. They want a GOP that acknowledges the reality that America is a nation in decline, but is not yet too late to save. As Ronald Reagan said, his 1980 address accepting the presidential nomination at the Republican National Convention, quote, "For those who have abandoned hope, will restore hope and will welcome them into a great national crusade to make America great again." And that brings us to the importance of this year's election. In 2016, staunch opposition from the GOP leadership, Donald Trump rejected the Washington Consensus and initiated a general what is it? A generational realignment in American politics. Sorry about that. I'm struggling with that word. If the conservative movement leads into the politics and policies President Donald Trump made successful, the American people will again have the opportunity this fall to accelerate a new consensus in Washington, D.C. This is why I remain optimistic about the future of our great nation. The GOP establishment's actions this past week portended the end of the GOP establishment, not its survival. Conservatives will win the soul of the GOP, and with it, the hearts of the American people. Um, I'm hoping that is correct. Again, I am not so optimistic. The deep state is deep, and they have control of every single aspect of our government. They continue to spew out propaganda and censor people like myself that want to speak truth and bring out information like this. It makes our task very, very difficult. I hope this writer is right. I hope Kevin Roberts is right. But let me know what you think. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time. Peace.